Hello, I'm Adam Wren,
And I'm Dasha Burns. It is Tuesday, July 15th.
and this is the Playbook Podcast. So, without further ado, here are the topics driving the day. First up, the economy. At 8:30 a.m., the Bureau of Labor Statistics will release its June inflation report, and you can expect a lot of conversation about Trump's tariffs if that number comes in too high. Later in the day, we'll be hearing from Trump about a different part of the economy, energy. He'll be keynoting the inaugural Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. That event brought to you by Senator David McCormick. Dasha, you've spent a lot of time during midterm elections in
Oh,
Pennsylvania.
yeah.
What do you make of the sort of choreography of this event, McCormick's involvement in it? How are you seeing this? What are you expecting? Is this going to be another rally speech?
I mean, yeah, if Trump is in Pennsylvania, he is likely to sound very Trumpy, although this is a very specific topic focus. It's AI, it's energy, and of course, Pennsylvania is kind of the epicenter of the energy conversation. McCormick's been very involved, and Trump sees Pennsylvania as really near and dear to his heart as a state that helped him win the last election, as a state where he was nearly assassinated, and folks rallied to his support there. So this is a topic that he feels really passionately about, that he campaigned on. He talks all the time about the gold under our feet and unleashing American energy. He created the Energy Dominance Council for the White House. So this is very much home turf in every way, except literally not being his home.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that we're just a few days still removed from the anniversary of his attempted assassination in Pennsylvania. So there's something of a symbolic trip back here to
Oh,
this
yeah. And
story.
Dave McCormick was there that day as well. So just a lot of reminders of what happened just over a year ago.
So this is all unfolding as we're expecting the inflation report. Economists are not expecting a lot of fireworks, but where we are seeing some fireworks is, as it turns out, between Trump, Putin, and NATO. You probably saw Trump's announcement yesterday that the US will continue to arm Ukraine, albeit with European financing. Dasha, you have been reporting about this. You're close to the situation in terms of talking with folks. Give us the scoop of what happened behind closed doors here and how this all unfolded.
Yeah, there are a number of questions that I've had since Trump's tone shift on Ukraine. Number one, what was it that caused this? Was there a straw that broke the camel's back? And I spoke with a senior White House official recently who said it wasn't one specific thing. It just felt like it was time. This is a moment where Trump is seeing, as he's having these calls with Putin that often do go very well. Okay, he has the call. And then some of the worst attacks on Ukrainian civilians since the war began have happened just in the last couple of weeks. And so the president is sick of feeling like he's being sort of tapped along by Putin. However, on the flip side of that, he does see, according to this official, Putin as sort of the bigger fish with the upper hand. That even though this war is as slow and is grinding, Russia does have the battlefield advantage. He knows the carrots and the sticks that he has. He's wanted to have sort of the most options for bringing Putin to the table, but is wary of some of the consequences and how to interact with the sort of strong man that Putin is, both publicly and privately. But this is reaching a fever pitch for Trump. And this is definitely much farther than we've seen him go, not just in tone. Like last week, I feel like there was a tone shift. Now it's a policy shift, both in this deal with NATO and the money and the arms, right? So this is really, really significant. However, there is still talk between the White House and Lindsey Graham with this congressional sanctions bill, where the White House wants changes to the language to make sure that Trump is the person that has the ultimate say. He doesn't want it to end with Congress. He doesn't want the buck to stop there. He wants it to stop with him because he wants to have the option to say, oh, hey, you've come to the table, you're negotiating in good faith. Okay, we'll hold off on those sanctions or we'll waive some of them. This is Trump still wanting to be the main actor in the art of the deal.
It's fascinating to me how the interpersonal dynamics between Trump and Putin are ultimately having the effect of bringing Trump back to sort of the American foreign policy mean over the last few decades, which hold that Putin is not a good operator and is difficult to deal with. So I think that's fascinating, and I also think the other thing bringing Trump back to his top self is the fact that there are midterm elections that are unfolding. We know that he loves to campaign. We know that he's a political animal. And today we do have two big campaign stories unfolding. There's a special election in Arizona that's going to tell us something about the Democrats.
If it's Tuesday.
That's right. And at the same time, Dasha, you are scooping a new poll that tells us a little bit something from Trump's pollsters about how they view the midterms and how they view Republicans' path in the next few months and what they need to do to outperform historic expectations here.
Yeah, this is from Tony Fabrizio and co. Fabrizio, of course, being one of Trump's go-to pollsters. And in a survey of voters in the most competitive congressional districts, Republicans right now have a bit of a deficit in the generic ballot, about -3 points. And one of the ways that this survey says Republicans could potentially overcome that deficit actually has to do with healthcare, with a premium tax credit. Now, this premium tax credit is something that's going to expire at the end of the year unless Congress does something. This is different than what has happened with some of the changes to Medicaid that won't take effect for a little while. These tax credits, people will feel their premiums go up unless Congress takes action. And this survey found that candidates who are ready to lead the charge on expanding these tax credits so that people can more easily afford their health care tend to do better. So that is kind of the both messaging and policy direction that the survey is pushing Republicans.
It's gotta be weird feeling for Republicans to be relying on a facet of Obamacare to help them do well in the midterms. That's sort of a bizarre world.
Well, and you've seen red states expand the Affordable Care Act because of the will of the voters. Voters have rallied to say that that's what they want their leaders to do. And so I think this is an issue that has really changed since we saw John McCain do the thumbs down on the Senate floor. But the issue of healthcare is a really complicated one for Republicans right now, given what has transpired with the big, beautiful bill. And I think we talk about this all the time, but both the impact on the ground and the messaging around what this is going to mean for most Americans, especially because at least that piece of it, the Medicaid piece of it from the mega bill, will take a while to set in. That's going to be a messaging battle between Democrats and Republicans for a while. This survey gives Republicans another tangible on the very important issue of healthcare to try to win voters over, even if they might be concerned about other aspects of that mega bill.
Yeah, and speaking of odd political developments and unexpected alliances here, Dasha, did you ever think that you'd be reporting on an election that has Bernie Sanders and AOC on the opposing side of David Hogg in Arizona, where we've got voters
Man,
heading to the polls for a special election in the 7th district that's in the southern part of the state down by the border with Mexico. And we're seeing kind of a three-way race to replace the late Representative Raul Grijalva. What do you make of this contest?
boy, there's a lot happening with Democrats that I wouldn't expect, including jumping on this Epstein bandwagon. There's there's a lot going on. I think this is a sort of moment where all of these different tensions within the party are coming to a head. We're talking the tensions around age, around race and ethnicity, around new guard, old guard, what actually matters to voters. These are all of the early issues that Democrats are going to have to tackle and figure out. Whether this goes well or poorly for the Democrats, regardless, this is going to be a very useful lesson, I think, for them going into a much denser period of critical races come 2026.
Yeah, I'm sort of watching a few dynamics. I wonder if the idea that it's less sort of a left, right, center, progressive divide in this primary and more that we'll learn that Democrats really want a fighter right now, someone
Mhm.
is willing to oppose Trump at every step of the way. I'm also watching Deja Fox, who is a content creator in her early 20s. She's of Filipino American descent and is sort of backed by David Hogg. We have the daughter of the late congressperson who is a progressive Latina who represents this majority Latino district. She's running as well. And then finally, we also have former state representative Daniel Hernandez, who hasn't been getting as much coverage, but is doing a lot of strong fundraising numbers down the home stretch. So I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic. I think that we'll learn a lot about where the Democratic Party energy is and what really just honestly is a safe Democratic seat.
And those are exactly the kinds of places that David Hogg has said he wants to go in and shake things up. So it's a case study for his theory of the case, and it's also a case study for the other direction. We have seen some similar themes across the board in recent elections that have less to do with ideology, less to do with really specific policy, and much more to do with a bigger message of fighting for the people, going against the grain, going against the establishment. And I think kind of no matter whether you're looking at a red state, a red district, a blue state, a blue district, voters are asking for serious authenticity, somebody who is not burdened by legacy of the politics of old, and someone who is willing to take the opposition head on.
One of the reasons why I am interested in this race, and particularly the candidate Deja Fox, is, as a content creator, Democrats right now are struggling in sort of the podcast gap in the influence game, connecting with regular people who don't follow the ups and downs of politics like we do, our listeners do every day. And so whether or not her TikTok influence and background will play a role here, I think is going to be an interesting litmus test for what kind of candidates do well in the midterms. Certainly something that we're going to be watching. We're expecting the results to start trickling in, much of the early vote around 11 p.m. Eastern tonight. So that will be some real political intelligence that we're going to receive from on the ground. We always try to end the podcast with something fun. And today we have some exclusive reporting that you can read more about in the newsletter. It's an excerpt from the new book, Empire of the Elite: Inside Condé Nast, the Media Dynasty That Reshaped America.
Ooh, what a title.
I know. And a cover too. You've got Graydon Carter, Anna Wintour, and Tina Brown, the famous magazine editor. And this is by Michael Grinbaum, the New York Times media reporter. I'm actually super excited to read this book. I just got done with Graydon Carter's memoir. And so this is sort of a full course meal following a great appetizer.
Sounds like the Washington Nerds version of a summer beach read to me.
Yeah. You have called my bluff. You've called my cards here. So we've got a great excerpt from Michael that we've obtained from his book. And essentially, Cy Newhouse, the publisher of Condé Nast, was much more involved in the making of Donald Trump and his myth back in the 1980s than was previously known. Essentially, he was involved after the cover of a GQ feature that featured Donald Trump, and the headline was "Success, How Sweet It Is." And what we learned from that is that Cy Newhouse's best friend since childhood was Roy Cohn, who, of course, our listeners will know was a close Trump advisor, someone that Trump learned a lot from. And this McCarthyite lawyer taught Trump a lot. And essentially, the art of the deal came out because Cy Newhouse, the publisher of Condé Nast, also owned Random House, the publisher. And so he rang up Trump after this GQ excerpt came out, and he pitched him on writing a book. And of course, the result, as history has it, was The Art of the Deal.
Wow,
Yeah,
what an
that's
origin
right. Well, what's
story.
interesting is Michael talked to Cy Newhouse's daughter and sort of brought her all of this. And we know that his daughter cringed when she learned about all this. And she told Michael for the book, quote, "I just don't know whether Trump would have gotten that show, The Apprentice, quote, but for the success of that book, The Art of the Deal," she said. So my father, in a way, put Donald Trump on the map.
Wow. Wow. Origin stories galore. That is so fascinating. The making of a Donald Trump.
You heard it
Incredible.
here first, and you can read more about it in today's newsletter. As always, send us your tips, birthdays, and spotted moments to Playbook at politico.com. And that's all for today's Playbook podcast. We have much more news and analysis in today's Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks for listening.
Have a great Tuesday.